Let me tell you the story of the day the sheriff rolled up to my front porch because someone said I stole my own house. One wish I were joking. It started just after 9 a.m. on a quiet Tuesday morning. The sun was cutting through the mist over the hills, and I had just poured my second cup of black coffee. I was barefoot, standing in the doorway of a house ID, just bought in cash at a probate auction. A brick beauty nestled at the end of a cul-de-sac that had been empty for almost a year. The house had been left behind after the previous owner passed, and it sat abandoned until I snatched it up through the county's probate court. No mortgage, no liens, no problems. I had the paperwork, the keys, and every legal right to stand there. But apparently, no one told the neighborhood that, just as I was about to step back inside, I noticed two people marching up the driveway. A woman in her late 50s wearing a neon pink tracksuit, dragging a clipboard, and a wiry man holding a camera phone like he was about to uncover Watergate. Both had the smug look of people who thought they were about to become local heroes. Excuse me. The woman snapped, as if I had just committed arson in broad daylight. What exactly do you think you're doing here? I blinked. Live in this property isn't yours, she shot back. We knew the family that lived here for 20 years. This is not a rental zone, and we're calling the sheriff right now. You're trespassing. I tried to explain, calmly, that I had bought the house legally through the probate court, and I offered to show them the documents. But they weren't interested. The man just kept filming, narrating under his breath like he was building a TikTok case file. This guy just moved in out of nowhere. Says he bought the place. Looks sketchy. Gonna expose him. I wasn't worried. I had every legal right to be there, but something about the way they stood there, so sure of themselves, made my stomach turn. 15 minutes later, the flashing red and blue lights painted the front windows. Two sheriff's deputies pulled up, bodycams rolling, and got out with hands resting on their holsters. My neighbors rushed up like they'd just cornered a fugitive. He broke in, Karen declared dramatically. He's been going in and out all morning, claiming he owns the house, but he doesn't belong here. This is a quiet community. One of the deputies approached me slowly, while the other stayed back with the accusers. His voice was calm but professional. Sir, do you have ID and any documentation showing you own this property? I nodded and walked them through everything. The signed court documents, the probate transfer, the county clerk receipts, and the key set that matched every door. I had it all organized in a folder, because I do read enough horror stories online to know that some neighbors act like they own the neighborhood. But I could tell the deputy wasn't expecting me to be prepared. He looked everything over, stepped aside to radio dispatch, and within minutes he had confirmation from the county recorder's office that everything I claimed checked out. Then came the moment I'll never forget. He turned around slowly, walked back toward the self-declared HOA heroes, and said with a tone of dry finality, "This man owns the home. He bought it legally. You're trespassing on his property." Karen's mouth dropped open. Carl stopped filming, but the deputy wasn't done. "If you continue harassing him, you'll be the ones facing charges." Do I make myself clear? I stood on the porch, in stunned silence, as they both sputtered excuses, talking over each other, trying to pivot the story. Karen insisted the neighborhood needed to vet new residents before someone just moves in from nowhere. Carl muttered something about needing to make sure no squatters were slipping through the cracks. But the damage was done, and the bodycam fitted. It captured every second. What they didn't know, not yet, was that I wasn't just going to let this slide. You see, I come from a long line of folks who believe in returning fire with fire, legally, of course. And Karen had just made the worst mistake of her life. The deputy's warning might have ended the scene, but it didn't end the problem. Not even close. By the next morning, I found out just how deep Karen's influence went in this so-called quiet community. A passive-aggressive letter had been taped to my mailbox. No signature, just typed in all caps. This neighborhood was built on trust. We don't like outsiders claiming what isn't theirs. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I almost laughed. Almost. But when I walked around the side of my house and saw that someone had scratched the words fraud into the rear driver's side door of my truck, the laughter died in my throat. That was when I realized this wasn't just about mistaken identity anymore. This was about control. And I had just taken control of a house that, to these people, represented something they thought they owned, even if it was never theirs. But here's the kicker. Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor with a clipboard. She was the self-appointed president of the unofficial HOA Watch Committee. A title that carried no legal power but somehow gave her the confidence to try to police property lines, mailboxes, trash bins, and now, apparently, who could own a home. The problem for Karen was that I don't back down from a bully, especially one with a smartphone and a superiority complex. So, I went into full legal mode. I started documenting everything. I filed a police report for the vandalism on my truck and included a copy of Karen's passive-aggressive note. Then I pulled the sheriff's incident report from the previous day and requested the body cam footage under Florida's public records law. Took less than 48 hours to receive the file. And what a file it was. Every word Karen said, every false accusation, every entitled threat, every time she pointed at my house and called me a squatter, was now in high-definition audio and video, time-stamped, backed by the sheriff's department, and completely inadmissible for her future denials. So, I did what any wrongfully accused, legally savvy homeowner would do. I sent that footage to the county attorney's office and filed a formal complaint for harassment and attempted trespass, but I didn't stop there. See, Karen and Carl hadn't just made false claims to the deputies, they'd published them. Carl had posted a half-edited version of his phone footage to a local Facebook group with the caption, "Caught a trespasser moving into a dead man's house. Share a call. Stay vigilant. Neighbors." I commented under that post, calmly, respectfully, with the official sheriff's report, the deed record, and a link to the uncut body cam footage. It took less than an hour for the post to be deleted, but by then, over 2,000 people had already seen it. And some of those people, they weren't Karen's fans. Turns out, Karen had a history. Multiple former residents in that same Facebook group chimed in. Stories about her threatening lawn service workers, accusing a black family of renting without permission. Even one tale about her harassing a widowed veteran who parked an RV in his own driveway during a move. And just like that, the neighborhood's opinion shifted. I stopped being the outsider, but here's where it gets better. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived at Karen's door. It was a notice of civil mediation. From me, using the video and written reports, I filed a claim for defamation, emotional distress, and vehicle damage. Now, Karen wasn't dealing with a mystery man. She was dealing with a documented homeowner, armed with evidence, public support, and a paper trail the size of a phone book. Carl, for his part, folded fast. He emailed me personally, apologizing, and asking if I'd consider dropping his name from the complaint. I told him I did consider it, right after my truck was repaired, and he posted a retraction to the same Facebook group. He did. Word spread fast. I couldn't walk down the sidewalk without neighbors suddenly waving. Some even brought over welcome cookies and shook my hand like I was some kind of urban legend. And in a way, I was the guy who took on Karen and won. But the best part, a local journalist picked up the story after the body cam clip started circulating on Reddit. The article headline was pure gold, entitled, "Neighbor Called Sheriff on Homeowner, Then Gets Schooled on Her Own Lawn." The article went viral. Karen, she went silent. I didn't sue her for the money. I sued for the message. A message loud enough to echo through every nosy front porch for miles. You don't get to weaponize the police because someone does fit your fantasy of who belongs. And thanks to one very public video, now the whole country knows it.